and welcome to the first Indium Tech webinar. A lot of you may already know, but we at Indium, we're an investment banking firm. We provide fundraising and M&A services in healthcare, consumer brands, and technology sectors. We also operate service verticals focused on corporate finance consulting as well as startup funding advisory. We set up this webinar to explore how fintech and more specifically the digital lending world has faced COVID and is also evolving post-COVID. Let me start by introducing our speakers on the panel. We have with us Gaurav Hinduja, the co-founder and MD at Capital Float, a leading fintech lender to Digital India. They started about 7 years back in 2013 as an online SME lender and have since continued to add products and services and now provide lending and finance solutions to businesses and consumers alike across the country. They've grown significantly over the past 7 years and disbursed, I think, over $1 billion of loans till date via their NBFC and their co-lending platforms. Capital Float has raised funding from leading global fintech investors, including Ribbit, Amazon, Creation, Sequoia, Saif, and Espada, and they've raised a total of over $115 million till date. Gaurav, who's joined us, is an alumnus of Stanford Graduate School of Business and was the CEO of the leading apparel exports company, Gokuldas Exports, before co-founding Capital Float in 2013. Hey, Gaurav. We also have with us Manish, who's a co-founder and CEO at Credex, India's first invoice discounting marketplace, and now a leading integrated cash flow solutions provider. They started in 2015 and have a gamut of products and solutions today aimed at businesses and investors alike. They provide working capital, growth capital, and treasury income solutions to businesses. TEDx has raised a total of about $30 million from leading global investors such as Tiger Global, Sequoia, Prime Venture Partners, and so on. Manish, who joined us, is an IIT Kanpur alumnus and has spent more than a decade in various leadership roles across financial institutions, including the likes of Citi, HSBC, and Capital One, before founding Credex about 5 years ago. Hey, Manish, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Kritika, for inviting.
Last but not the least, we also have Nitish, the MD of Indium Capital, with us here to share his perspectives on the industry as well. Hey, Nitish. So let's get started.
Manish, thanks so much for joining. Look forward to the discussion.
Yeah. Great. So let's get started. As we all know, I'd say the world and the Indian economy has seen a significant upheaval in the last few months since COVID hit us. Post removal of lockdowns, etc., in the past, I would say phased removal of lockdowns in the past couple of months, we are also seeing some indications of a post-COVID normal, if you will. We are here to discuss and debate what this post-COVID normal or new normal means and how the fintech world has evolved since and will continue to going forward. We are planning for this to be about a 30-minute discussion, after which we'll answer questions from the audience. I know many of you have already sent in your questions via email, but feel free to write in any additional questions in the chat window during the session, and we will try to pick them up towards the end. Anyway, so to get started, let me start, Gaurav and Manish, and address both of you on this first question that we have, which is to say that what are really the biggest challenges you're seeing, or changes that you're seeing to the way of doing business post-COVID, both on the supply side of your business as well as on the demand side? Gaurav, if we could start with you, that would be great.
Sure. So thanks, Kritika, and thanks, Nitish. I think post-COVID has obviously seen a lot of challenges within the NBFC and lending sector. But before I get to the challenges, let me spend a couple of minutes in terms of what are the green shoots and interesting positive developments that have also happened since COVID, right? So I think the first positive that has really happened is most folks expected a lot of SMEs and consumers to not repay back loans and expected collection efficiencies, or rather very low collection efficiencies, in the mid 40 to 50 range. I think a lot of us have been pleasantly surprised that the number for most people is around the 80% mark. So I think that itself is the first good benchmark, I would say. Obviously, it's not where it needs to be, but given circumstances, I think 80% for a lot of lenders is a fairly decent kind of benchmark. The second positive thing that has happened is both SMEs as well as consumers in the short period of 6 months since lockdown started have started to apply and actually consume loans far more digitally than they ever were doing it. So, for example, a couple of our e-commerce checkout options that we do have seen tremendous growth in the last 6 months, and we've added close to 1 million customers on our e-commerce checkout finance since COVID. The third thing is coming from a money supply perspective, and I'm sure Manish will have better view on this, but we do have a lending marketplace with both banks as well as HNIs. And while banks have obviously gone a little bit slow in the last few months for obvious reasons, we see a big spike in demand from the HNI market because obviously yields generally in debt have come down. And so for alternative lenders like us who are offering a very decent yield, we've seen a good amount of money supply. So these are the 3-4 kind of positive things that have happened. Obviously, challenges do remain, even though collection efficiency is around 80%, they're at historical lows. And so I think everyone will expect NPAs over the next 12 to 18 months to actually rise. Obviously, the government and the RBI are taking necessary measures, but a lot of those measures are in some ways delaying the problem. But I think over the next 12 months, we will see NPAs definitely go through the roof. I think you will definitely see a lot of consolidation within the market as well over the next 12 months, where there will be opportunities for bigger funded players to kind of gain more market share, while some of the smaller ones will definitely have problems raising equity. And I think the third sort of challenge that we all have to face is really how does money supply from the banks actually start to open up? While we've started to see some of it in the last couple of months, is that going to remain over the next 6 to 12 months? I think that's more of a question mark because ultimately the economy will only revive once there is enough credit flow. And as much as we all love what we do at digital lending, we are all put together a small drop in the ocean. So till the banks really don't open their purse strings, I don't think we will actually see a lot of growth coming in.
Right. Good. That's actually very interesting, and especially on the consumer side, I would say we were all quite surprised by that 1 million kind of number. But that's interesting. Thanks for that, Manish. If you would like to share your perspectives as well.
Yeah, I think Gaurav has touched base right in terms of the opportunity that is presented. I'd touch a little bit on the challenges in terms of what has happened. I think immediately post-COVID, or I would rather say post-lockdown, what happened is the cash flow has gone for a toss for pretty much every single businesses, whether they are directly consumer facing or whether they are in a B2B. Everybody who is sitting on the cash, they just wants to sit on the cash because they don't know what is going on. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market, and nobody wants to work on an uncertainty piece. So we have seen even payments from large multinationals, like literally Fortune 50 companies are not paying on time, saying that hey, we are not going to pay because there's a a lockdown that is in effect, even though they are like least affected by the lockdown. But that's what they're happening because fundamentally everybody wants to sit down and do. Leading into the Indians Jugaad mechanism, I would say that a lot of people have started producing in everybody was either producing PP or ventilators or BiPAC, or even everybody is doing logistics services. So, tons of startups gone into logistics. Everybody is like saying that I will do a door supply. So these was a good, I would say, filler into the market in terms of that it leads to businesses being in survival mode. The problem as a lender to us is basically what is I would say the steady state, right? So there is definitely an impact that has happened because of COVID in certain cash flow. But then because of these jugaad, these are not fundamentally coming onto the balance sheet or flows or different mode to see that, because some of these mask other things are not sustainable business, right? It's going to go down. So how it's going to impact in terms of your risk assessment, how you're going to do the businesses is something which is still a challenge. With the RBI moratorium and now with restructuring, etc. in past, I think it's still going to take some time for market to stabilize, for the lenders to understand where we can go ahead and work on it. From on the demand side, I think what Gaurav said is absolutely right. Most of the banks has completely gone into collateralized lending, where they are only asking for a secured asset to do something. Otherwise, if there's not secured, it's almost like nil, or they will keep you on hanging. The HNI piece has worked the other way around. It's always works other way around as compared to institutional funding. So HNIs are coming in board and saying, "Hey, I want to put money," because of course the debt fund and other things, everything, the yield has reduced. So if you are getting above 10% yield, it's still a better instrument to be. So I think there are some positive shoots in there, but at the same time, there are still challenges which we need to be watchful of.
Have you guys seen in the last 6 months, and I think around April, when it's sort of perhaps business pretty much came to a standstill for most people, and then, slowly it's sort of been unlocking and evolving, and people, like you said, in the Indian Jugaad way, also sort of figuring out ways to make money for themselves. Have you guys seen a good trend in terms of the recoveries of the economy and the businesses in general? Or you think there's still a very long way to go?
Yeah, so it's I can break it up in terms of by region and by kind of industry, right? So we've seen a relatively decent bounce back in smaller towns where we lend at, whether those are the Salems or the Chandigarhs or the Lucknows of the world, compared to the metros. And the reason obviously being because the penetration of COVID was probably far lesser in these cities rather than the big metros. So I think there the bounce back has been, I would say, better, not great, but at least better compared to the large 5 to 6 metros. I think the second thing is we've seen again a better bounce back in terms of B2B businesses rather than B2C businesses again, because a lot of the B2C businesses like restaurants or bars or retail outlets, nobody's really frequenting. But again, comparatively, B2B businesses have seen a fairly better recovery compared to the B2C guys. And I think the consumer business obviously has, I would say, it's interesting to see that the salaried individuals again are performing better than self-employed. Again, obviously, because incomes are not so stable in the self-employed world. But I think that's a matter of time when we start to see the self-employed hopefully coming back to business in the next few months.
Order. Interesting. Let me ask you a question about both of you again. A question about your own businesses and how you've dealt with, obviously, the challenges and the opportunities in the last few months, right? Would you say that, all of us have seen across businesses that COVID has really sort of brought out the innovation and, if you will, dynamism of a lot of startups in terms of the way of doing businesses or the way of growing on their own, one way or another. Are there any specific innovations or business model changes that you see, that you've implemented or you see sort of coming in going forward to sort of help you from a growth and a profitability perspective?
I think from our side, we have seen a couple of things which has happened. One is, and just want to add on from the previous question which Gaurav was answering, most of the business or sector was intuitive in terms of the recovery, except one sector which was fundamentally the fashion, which we are seeing a very good offtake happening, which is completely counterintuitive. If you think normally that why fashion, like where the first thing people will leave is fashion, but fundamentally when you merge it with what Gaurav says, that he's seeing a good uptake in tier 2, tier 3, what is happening is a lot of people who was living in metros has gone to their hometown, right, with this all work from home and everything, right? So there is a lot of disposable income as compared to the same income they used to have in metros. They have a lot of higher disposable income in tier 2, tier 3. So they are buying a lot of these things, and plus their cost of living has reduced. They're living in their houses, right? So all those things. So because of that, they're spending a lot on the fashion piece. And seen the same trend across multiple online fashion players, where this trend is continuing in terms of it. What we have also seen is one of our products, which is Credix earlier, is a dynamic discounting platform, where we are seeing a lot of now corporates are coming in on their own and saying that they want to be, take that product. Fundamentally, because with all this new cash flow issues coming up, either they want to preserve the cash or they want to take the benefit of it. So whoever is the cash surplus companies, they're saying, hey, why not make more money, right? So do a dynamic discounting bidding and let the vendor pay for getting the payment faster. And vendors is some kind of a similar trend that we have seen during demonetization also, when there was not enough cash in the economy and everybody was ready to pay higher interest or higher discount rate for the cash. The same thing right now happening, where a lot of vendors are ready to pay higher money, higher interest or higher discount, or for the getting the payment faster from the for their corporates. So we have seen this happening in a lot of B2B environment where a large anchors are coming saying, hey, can you launch a platform or can you launch this diamond discounting for us? So that is something that is definitely there. Apart from this, I think the more innovation on the lender side is happening on the risk management side, where I think I'm sure Gaurav will tell more, but I think everybody is coming out with new models and new way to understand what's working, what's not working. And one way of looking into is your usual CIBIL score has gone for a toss, because fundamentally it's long-termish as compared to somebody. Somebody might have a CIBIL score of 800, but he has lost his job, so you cannot get the money, right? So similar kind of thing you might be seeing on the MSME environment also. So those you need to be more innovative or more ahead of the curve to find it out what's risk models that is going to work. Yeah, of course, the digital part is another thing where people are now not ready to meet you. So earlier when we have to go and meet people, now that ask or that want has gone. So people are ready to meet you digitally, ready to come on the call, all those things. So that's a good part of it.
Interesting. Oh, that's very good to know. Gaurav, do you have any perspectives on the innovation side as well?
Yeah, I think twofold, two ways of looking at innovation. One is within existing business lines, like Mani said, how do you actually drive more digitization? So a lot of us obviously set up with obviously a lot of digital processes, but having to even push those boundaries even further now, whether it comes to KYC or digital loan agreements, etc. Right. So I think that innovation is par for the course, I would say, for a lot of digital lenders. But I think a lot of what we are at least trying at Capital Float is what can you sort of provide to your customers outside of credit, right? Because credit, even if there is a lot of demand, you may not want to be disbursing as much at this point in time, at least for a few months, because like Mani said, you really don't know what the underwriting models are going to look like. So I think at our end, we are experimenting with a lot of non-credit products around the insurance, around savings, deposits, etc. Given the large base that we have, how do you monetize those customers and be more of a financial partner to them rather than just being a credit provider at this point?
Excellent. Let me jump in, Gaurav, to take off from that. I was just remembering we've known each other for a while now, probably since your Series A in 2015. So time flies. But in some sense, therefore, I think you and Shashank were the early starters in the online lending space before fintech became a commonplace word. And therefore, you've probably seen more of the ups and downs in online lending over the last 5-6 years as well. To you, is COVID just another up down? Is it like another recession, if you will, labeled as COVID, or do you feel there's something more fundamental that will change from the online lending space? And I'm attributing it to, for example, you and Shashank have been extremely, transparent over the last few months, pleasantly so. And you mentioned that collections you brought in-house, you in-sourced collections back again as a fundamental driver. So do you see COVID resulting maybe 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the line when things recover as having fundamentally changed something in the lending space online, more than just a recession?
Yeah, so I think it is fundamentally changing the way at least we are approaching business, right? I think given that we, and I would say when I say we, a lot of the industries had back-to-back black swan events, whether it's the DeMon, GST, ILFS, now COVID. I think over the last 3-4 years, we've had enough of black swan events. But I think this is actually ensuring that we declutter business in such a way that you pick one or two kind of customer segment categories and actually focus on them rather than being a lot more horizontal. So the approach we are taking now is pick the segments and go much more deep and go vertical rather than try to kind of be everything for everybody, which is something we were trying to do a couple of years ago. But obviously, given the successive black swan events and now COVID, I think our positioning has become a lot clearer to the customers as well, that we can be a one-stop financial shop for them, whether it's credit, whether it's savings or anything else that they need. And once you find that niche of, let's say, a few million customers, I think that's all you need to build a fairly sizable business in India.
And in fact, one of the questions that came up on the chat, and I wanted to just add on to this, is: are you seeing fundamentally your lending processes that will change, because of the digitization forced by COVID? For instance, in the real estate world, a lot of people are saying that even when COVID is fully done, the proportion of people who continue to work from home will remain high. So, the real estate industry may see, at least the office space may see a negative change there. Do you see any positive impact because of COVID on your processes, the way you lend, the way you underwrite, the way you recover money, etc.?
Yeah, so I think from an acquisition side, things will become a lot more easier and digital, right? Because while consumers were happy to interact digitally at the time of applying for a loan, SMEs, you still required a bit of handholding from Salesforce, from your sales teams, etc. I think that process we've already seen is now almost becoming 80 to 100% digital, where you don't even require much of a sales team. You will require, however, some underwriters on the credit side, because especially for the next 12 months, as a lot of businesses will have tough times. But I think the fun thing in India is, no matter how digital we get because of COVID, you'll still need somebody to go and meet someone physically for collections, right? I think it'll be a small percentage, but I don't think there's any way around that, at least for the next few years.
Fair enough. Well, thanks for that. Appreciate it. Manish, on a similar note, I was again trying to remember today morning. I think since the entire time we've known each other, probably since after your Series A back in 2016-17, and I think even Credex have been extremely media shy. You always stayed under the radar, and then it's only recently that people have really begun to appreciate your unique lending model, no balance sheet exposure, unheard of levels of NPA. And managing that ecosystem really well, very, very low burn. You obviously started with invoice discounting earlier, but now you seem to have a range of cash flow lending solutions. And you entered COVID fairly well capitalized in a good space, ready to grow. And I know we were speaking in May, June, and that was the time you were kind of thinking through the growth aspects of Credex. And your exposure continues to be a little bit more B2B than B2C. I think most of it is B2B for you. How do you see that space, now and going forward fundamentally? What are the legs of the table that have changed for the better or for the worse for you?
I think in a certain way, it is better because we always was fully digital. In fact, we were one of the first to have a digital contract and electronic signature and everything in place. In fact, I remember one of the time when one of the banks says, hey, we want a digital platform. And when we showed them, they said that it's too digital for us. So what do you mean too digital? It either has to be digital or not digital, right? But I think from there now, immediate response post lockdown has is that few of the NBFC actually reached out to say that, can you white label your product, right? Can you, if that's, when you say we don't, then the is okay, can you manage entire stuff for us? So I think most of the lenders are now realizing that they need to be in a digital world. Otherwise, today COVID is coming, tomorrow I don't know, something else will come and people will not move out of it. Of course, the work from home is another theory because people are now moving to all across. So earlier, when the entire centralization of everybody is happening in the metros, now it's getting dispersed to tier 2, tier 3, even to villages. So there is no way you can have a presence in like so many villages or tier 2, tier 3 cities. So you need a digital presence. At the same time, with the influx of Jio into the picture, and everybody now know how to use an app, have a smartphone, and all those things, right? So why not have a digital presence? I think a little bit of shift which we still need to see is on two things. One is regulator has to move towards more digital and say that, yeah, we are fine to have everything digital, even the KYC to e-sign to all those things, which we are seeing a little bit of, I would say, positiveness, but I will still don't say that it's there per se. And second, which Gaurav has touched as in terms of collection, can do a collection digitally, right? I think the next big thing in lending is, or basically, I would say that is going to solve all problems of lending. If you can say that, hey, can I do collection digitally, where I don't have to rely on my collection guy to go and meet the guy. In a way, in our model, this collection was always digitally because we give money to somebody else and collect money from somebody else. And that somebody is what we trust. So we say that, hey, why not? That guy is giving money digitally. But again, I agree to Gaurav's point is I think it's still, if you ask me if there is a solution to that, I don't know if there is a solution to that or not. But fundamentally, the world will move towards a flow-based underwriting platform as compared to a balance sheet underwriting. And this is not only I'm talking about flow-based in terms of the businesses, but it will also happen on the consumer side, where people will try to say that, can I have the flow, or can I control the flow? And this flow are digital, so in a way you are controlling the collection also. But yes, that's going to be the next fundamental or big shift from on the lending that is still needs to come.
Interesting, because you are the only player which has achieved any scale with predominantly a non-balance sheet funding model. Otherwise, most of the lenders have gone on to some sort of a balance sheet lending model. Do you really feel that can be extended towards the consumer side, and it can continue to be a model that a lot more of your peers would take to as well going forward, because they've actually moved in the opposite direction?
I think the problem is more on the regulatory front rather than anything else. On the consumer side, it's more regulatory tightened up. I think until unless the regulator is going to open up in terms of having different players or non-balance sheet lending. See, fundamentally, to have a non-balance sheet lending, you need to have what Gaurav has also said, is to have a FIs as well as non-FIs both participating into it. Because FIs, when they go in ports, and FIs and non-FIs generally behave opposite to each other. So if you want to have a sufficient liquidity on the platform, you need to have both. And sometimes the regulators comes as a spoiler sport in terms of not allowing you to do all the experiments that you want to do in terms of. So I think the question needs to be asked more to RBI than to me in terms of if that is. I think most of people would love to have that model, but a lot of times it's the hindrance that becomes a spoiler sport.
So, in fact, Gaurav, I'll just add one question to that to you, because I know you and Shashank have also originally envisioned a move towards lesser and lesser balance sheet exposure. But over time, I think you realized that you needed a balance because of regulatory and other issues in India. Do you see the regulator opening up this sector? I mean, they've done from what we hear, and we do a lot of work in healthcare, as you know, they've done a fairly decent job in health tech by opening up online consultation and all pre-COVID. But there's not been too much movement on any of the BFSI sector, whether it's insurance or whether it's lending. Do you see that changing at all, or is it going to be status quo going forward as well?
I mean, to put it bluntly, I think the intent is there. The execution is not necessarily there. So I think it'll take time. Obviously, it's coming, right? You got account aggregator, you got the open kind of lending framework. So I would say in 2 years, a lot of it will kind of be there, but it's always 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, right? You had KYC and that's kind of gone. So I think and I think that is also fundamentally okay, given the stage at which a lot of the digital lenders are at in India. And we've also seen a lot of NBFCs actually who try to manipulate the system, right? So I don't blame the regulator for trying to be cautious at times. But I think at this point in time, I think they could have taken a few more bold decisions when it came to how digitization needs to play out. Like I said, the intent is definitely there. I think it's just going to be a question of how long it will take.
Got it. No, very interesting. Very interesting. Back to you, Kritika.
No, great. So I think perhaps, I mean, we talked a lot about the business and the impact till date. I thought it would be useful to spend a couple of minutes talking about say growth strategy and the investor environment as well. And both of you have, I would say, leading global fintech investors on your board. What are you hearing from your investors, right? In terms of like, how are they reacting to this post-COVID world? Are they looking at specific fintech sectors over others? Are they pushing for growth, or are they sort of being more cautious in this environment? Again, if you're able to sort of share some light on that, that would be useful.
I think they're all looking at tech.
Jokes about sums it up.
Jokes aside, I think obviously all investors have been very supportive. Obviously, nobody is really asking for growth at this point in time. The focus is really, at least if you're a balance sheet lender, kind of the focus is on collections, making sure you're able to kind of get as much recoveries as possible. In terms of obviously new investors, I think folks are waiting to see how the moratorium and the restructure will play out over the next few months. And so I think there is a wait and watch kind of approach to a lot of digital lending and in general within the NBFC world. But I think typically, at least a lot of our investors, or rather all the investors, have been very supportive in terms of how we've been wanting to build the business, or rather how we've been wanting to kind of make changes to our product lines, kind of given COVID. And we do realize that everyone will obviously have to look at new forms of fundraising, whether that's equity, debt, etc., over the coming year. And so hopefully there is sort of light once a lot of the moratorium and restructuring processes kind of clear up.
Do you have any perspectives on that as well, Manish? Or
I think mostly investors from investor side, it's like they're saying stay put. Don't go too aggressive. I think Sequoia has gone step ahead by publishing it in the news months before. I think 5-6 months back itself. But I think that's where the theme for most of the investors to stay put, manage your collection. I think one thing which I'm hearing more during this time is if you can survive this, pretty much you could be in the the best one in the market, or you can you will be the remaining one in the market, rather than I would say best one in the market. So yeah, I think that is mostly which is happening. Apart from Gaurav, what has said rightly, it's edtech, or if something is left over, then it's going to mobile games and all those things. So nothing for fintech.
so Nitish, you're on mute if you.
There is a very interesting question from the audience regarding inorganic acquisitions. So, a lot of industries in this kind of downturn, the generic thought process, as you know, is to say, okay, fine, can stronger players snap up, the weaker guys at better rates? Does that make sense for online lending, and where each of you and your company stand? I mean, it's not a direct, scale addition for you. That is not what probably adds value. So are you seeing opportunities where inorganic expansion actually makes sense? Maybe we can start with Manish and go to Gaurav.
Yeah, I think definitely. In the first few months of the lockdown, we got a lot of companies, a lot of people is coming back to us asking for if we want to acquire. I think for us, what matters is if it is, of course, what you said, it doesn't make sense to add in terms of the volume as such, or to take somebody's bad book into our books. But fundamentally, the question is more around if it adds into any new products or any kind of a new vertical that we have not present in, or if somebody is like very strong in something, or if they're coming up with a new product, maybe the time to market for that product can reduce by acquiring somebody. So I think those are the few questions that we are asking while evaluating in companies. But very frankly, we are getting a lot of companies to say that, would you be open for acquisition, or would you want to acquire us, or even for strategic investment, forget the upright acquisition, but even from the strategic investment perspective also. It's bound to happen because as some of the fundings had dried up in the fintech spaces sector, and few of the players may not have the money in the bank to ride this storm. So this is going to happen, but I think we still haven't seen any big M&A or big inorganic events happening as of yet.
Got it. Gaurav, how about you? How do you and Shashank see this?
I think very similar, right? Because the opportunities are coming our way, but it has to be something very unique and value adding. Otherwise, it does not really make too much of sense at this point in time, right? Nobody really wants to add book. Nobody really wants to add more customers at this point in time. It has to be something very complementary to the business that can really add equity value over the coming years, right? So I think all of us will see some opportunities coming our way over the next few months. Hopefully, there is kind of appetite across the board, and can make for stronger companies and help us compete with some of the larger folks.
Yes.
Interesting. So then I would say perhaps from both of your perspective, and it was obviously very similar in this question, right? It's more like opportunities are coming your way, and if there is something great, that's obviously something you guys would look at. But you'd rather sort of, and taking from what you said a few minutes earlier, you want to sort of look at how to better your business and focus on growth and expansion within yourselves, and come out stronger at the other end of this scenario. But that's very useful to know. I think there's perhaps one last question, I think, from the panelists, which is a little complex, but let me just, from the attendees, let me just sort of put it to you guys. So both of you obviously have a marketplace aspect where you have FIs and HNIs sort of investing into the system, right? So are there, post-COVID per se, are there any changes that you're seeing to the kind of returns or the kind of risks that HNIs especially are sort of willing to take in the platform, or is it, especially since you also mentioned earlier, Manish, that the yields in other investments have gone down. So are we seeing any change in the way HNIs are behaving on the marketplace in the recent months?
Not exactly. We have seen, in fact, more HNIs or more money coming into us. So we are sitting on, at any big given time, we are sitting on more AUM to be managed than can be deployed. So from that perspective, I would not say that there is anything has changed. In fact, from our side, we have gone into more transparency in our processes. We have come into disclosing it more and more. In our format, what we call it is we make it underwriting ready, but we don't underwrite it. What it means is that everything is there, and any investor wants to take a call, they can look into it and take their own call. From the rate perspective also, I think we are holding on to our fort, though there is a downside pressure which is coming up because of the RBI reducing the rates, and so is bank. But at the same time, because of the liquidity not available in the market, we are able to hold on to the yield for the investors also. So from their perspective, I think nothing has changed fundamentally for us.
I think one unique thing we are seeing is demand for more shorter term kind of debt instruments. So
Okay.
over the last few years, we would typically do HNI instruments of about 2 years. Now we're seeing a lot of interesting demand around the 6-month and 3-month kind of tenures, which again works well for us from an ALM perspective, because a lot of our consumer checkout finance products are in the 3-month range. So I think that has really kind of helped enable to grow disbursements on that particular product.
There was another question, Gaurav, possibly for you, because you straddle both consumer and B2B spaces. Medium term, take 2-3 years, do you see the consumer side growing faster or the B2B side going faster from where you stand?
I think the consumer side will go faster, but I think that's the space also that will be more competitive. So I think net from a opportunity perspective, I'm still and more bullish on the smaller SME world. And I think, yes, the next 6 to 12 months will be hard, but if you play this out 2 to 3 years, I think if you can kind of ground your footing at this point in time, I think small business lending is just will really go digital and will really scale in the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay, so there's a question that's about lending and fundraising in the commercial and residential real estate space. Is there, do any of you have like a perspective, and I'll address this to you as well, Nitish. I think you can also provide perhaps your pearls of wisdom on this one.
I think the short answer is stay away from commercial and residential real estate lending.
I tend to agree, although I don't have any operational or direct information, but I think long term the demand for office space in large cities will go down, although one is hearing that there is a counter trend where you might find smaller setups in tier 2, tier 3 towns where people choose to stay back, go up. But right now, most of the money is invested in the former, not the latter. So I agree with Gaurav, stay away for now.
I'm not already away from it.
No, fair. I actually sort of looked up another question that had come in a little bit earlier on an email. Somebody wanted to understand in terms of a marketplace kind of business, right? And especially like in the invoice discounting kind of space. Are there any specific licenses or sort of, if you will, regulations that one needs to follow from a government perspective, or is that only for a NBFC or a kind of what kind of business?
So there are, so as part of DPSS, which is Department of Payment and Settlement System, they give a TREDS license, which is a separate set of factoring the marketplaces that runs into, and that is required. But you can work also within, not going into licenses and structure your business differently also.
So it's interesting.
One final and quick question to each of you, Gaurav and Manish. You guys have seen a lot of this space and a lot of the changes that have come in over the years, over the last few years. Where do you guys personally stand? I mean, today, here and now, do you see a really strong revival from here onwards from your business perspective, or like, do you expect choppiness to persist? And I'm not talking tactically. I'm just saying, what excites you today, or what kind of worries you today? 6 months into COVID, when you come into work.
I think there is a level of optimism that honestly was not there in previous recessions, if I can kind of, or previous black swan events, if I can kind of call it that. For the simple reason that we are seeing customer behavior change fairly significantly. And two, obviously, while there will be short-term pain, I don't think the world is heading for a new normal like most people already say. That's not my worldview, at least. I think 6 months of pain or 12 months of pain, and then the world's going to go back to what it was. So I think there is an opportunity to be more customer centric and digitized now in a similar world that we existed about a year ago, right? So I think there is a lot of optimism. Yes, there's going to be short-term pain for another year or so, but like Manish said, for folks who can kind of get past this, I think there is a lot of opportunity lying ahead.
Manish, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's the same. If after every black swan event, if you see space lead which is affecting the financial sector, there is always a very sharp uptick has happened. Whether it's 2007-8 crisis, or when 2001 to dot-com bubble, or 97 crisis, all of them, immediately after that, there was a sharp uptick happened. Fundamentally more driven by government and regulator, because you cannot live without it. And I think with COVID, we have already seen the bad side of it. Now we're talking about vaccine coming up. People are going back to their normal life, and also, I think it's a more positive outlook going forward. If you had asked me the same question maybe in March, I would have said I don't know what where we are going into. But yes, as of now, I would definitely say it's a more positive or brighter outlook that we can see in terms of, especially I'm very, very positive with some of the sectors which we have seen growing, and which were completely counterintuitive, and some of these sectors like fashion, etc., which has gone into. So it seems like that we are reviving or recovering much faster than what we thought earlier.
Interesting. Super. Thanks for that.
Thanks for that. And I think that's all the time we have as well. So thank you, Gaurav and Manish, for taking time out of your working day, to sort of participate in this webinar and perhaps share, quite frankly, a lot of what you're facing as well to our audience. Thanks a lot for that, and I wish you all the best in the coming months, and let's hope we all come out of this stronger than before.
Thanks, Kritika. Thanks, Nitish.
Thanks, Gaurav. Thanks, Manish. Look forward to catching up, hopefully, once COVID settles down.
Sure, sir. Thanks, Gaurav.
Thank you.
Nice talk.